ask me. I don't know. Don't ask me because I'm the last person to ask. I don't know if the purpose is to make the world larger or smaller. If I knew that, maybe I could cast an opinion. Maybe I would have something useful to say. But I don't, so there you go. If it's both, that's all right, I guess. If the idea is for the two people to make some kind of rhythm together between a larger and smaller world, to move together, to look at the world and say this is the lousiest place I've ever seen and the most wonderful place I could imagine together, then I can understand that in theory. I can understand leaving a house with answers and coming back home with questions that get answered sometime in the night. Where I get stumped is whether or not a person is who they are standing still or if they are who they are in motion. Because love seems like a place where they are telling each other, I accept you standing still. I accept you when you are not reaching or trying and you're asking the world to be the one doing a little reaching and trying for a change. And yet there is something so unspeakably beautiful about motion, about always being the one doing the reaching and trying. And I can remember going all the way back to when I was a boy, and there was no time that I felt more like my role was to love as when I watched girls playing soccer. And girls that I did not particularly notice standing still would suddenly look so beautiful in motion that I wouldn't know what to do. Almost like they had reached it. They had reached whatever a girl could reach to match the grass and the sky. And then as I got older, it was the motion inside. It was the way she could try to stay one step ahead of her own thoughts and feelings. It was the way she could struggle with them. The way she could keep them and still stay light on her feet. And she could have her beliefs, but she knew that she could hold them just as tightly to her heart when she held them like feathers as when she held them like boulders. I don't know if I should not be expecting feathers in a world that was building up boulders all the time. Building up boulders and girls and women that I don't know the first thing about. And maybe the idea is that there is a man or a woman around whom the boulders feel like feathers. And nothing goes away, it's just that the boulders turn into feathers. Which would be all right, because at least the common understanding is there that the purpose is to fly, which is the best kind of motion there is. And I'm glad there's that to agree on at least. It's just a question of what kind of flying, and where, and when, and how. But what I don't know is, what if you've already been flying before you meet? What if you've already been flying because that's the only way you had left to move? Because down on the ground you were carrying boulders, so you felt like a boulder yourself. And you were looking up at birds like a stranger, instead of seeing them only as a slight variation of yourself. What if you had to fly and stay flown, and a woman comes along and says, come down here on the ground with me, because you have boulders that are like my boulders, and we can do some great things with them together. We can laugh about them and we can cry about them, and we can know that they are there in each other. We can develop our own secret language with them so that there won't be a great need for words, and even just a few words will tell a story that goes far back in ourselves about them. We will learn about each other's boulders and we will learn from each other how to carry them. And what if you want to tell her that when you look down on the ground from above, you can see your boulders and everybody else's, and from that height they all look very much the same. They all look very much the same and they all look very beautiful from up there as well. What if you don't know where you're going to be able to get to without that view? I don't know. I'm not the one with answers. If the man feels like singing, he should sing. If it's just after she's asked him a question, that might be a little awkward. Then again, if she joins in, they might have something. The song is always going. They just happen to be joining in for a while. If the two people hear it differently, it is good to acknowledge that what the other hears is still a song. It is still an effort to be part of something larger. It's the rhythms that are different. I've looked up at birds and thought that I wanted to move like them, and I like the way there is a soaring between each flap. It's not with any expectation that there's going to be soaring forever. They know that they're going to have to flap again as they go, but that doesn't take anything away from the soaring. They know there's going to be a few moments where they are the masters of it, and I've watched them do the same thing in whatever kind of world it happens to be. And I don't know if the two people are trying to make a larger world or a smaller one, or if they're trying to do their best in the world that happens to be. I just don't know what they're going to do in a world that is going to outlast them, if they don't begin with the premise that it is a world that is going to outlast them. And then whatever they do after that, more power to them. I wish them the best through and through. I wish every one of them the best, and I wish myself the best too. We aren't birds, so it's difficult to move with that kind of grace for even a few moments, let alone forever. It's nice to think that the pursuit of that grace is the same for everybody. But you'll be talking to her on the phone one day and you'll say something that is indicative of your pursuit of grace, and she will say something that is indicative of hers. And you will pause because there is grace at the end of both of them, but it is two different worlds. And you'll know that your world is based on motion, and hers is based on an intimacy and standing still. And there's no question that each one is right for each person. And there are even times when the two worlds are only a hair's breadth away from each other. And it beats the hell out of me whether or not it has to be the same world for it to be love. I don't know, and I'm the last person to ask. They are both going to be struggling in whatever world they are living in. They are both going to be looking up at the birds and wondering if only their own lives could travel the course as clean and purposeful as the bird's path in flight. And they will harbor a secret belief that they do, only they just can't see it yet. And what I am prepared to say is that there is love in that wondering and secret believing together. And I don't know if it has to be the same wondering and secret believing or not, but there is still love in that, and that's just about as far as I can go.